Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of The Pursuit of Purpose. Today, I have Steve Heroux, the CEO and founder of Dallas-based Victory Selling, where he's committed to changing the way we look at sales and sales leadership. Steve is a sales development expert, professional trainer and keynote speaker, and the leading authority in providing cutting-edge strategies on selling in today's marketplace. In his 25 years in the industry of professional selling, Steve has trained thousands of salespeople to reach their targets, led multiple high-performing sales teams. He's risen to the top of his field in multiple industries, and he leaves his audiences and clients changed for the better. In 2021 alone, he's spoken to more than 50 Vistage groups, and he has 100 Vistage speaking engagements already set for 2022. Steve is the author of Sales is Not a Dirty Word, and his 2 Quarters of Greatness system is revolutionizing his client sales organization. Steve is passionate about teaching how to do sales the right way. Well, Steve, looks like this is just like a warm-up for a pretty exciting 2022 that you have coming.
It's pretty nuts, man. I was just on the phone with two other Vistage chairs, as you know them, and I can't do any more, so we booked a couple for summer 2023.
That's awesome.
Which is pretty nuts to even think about how fast it's gone, and how grateful I am to have people that want to hear what I have to say. So it's pretty humbling.
Well, I'm grateful for you taking the time out to come on to the podcast today, and I'm excited for our conversation.
Yeah, thank you, man. Excited to share.
So to start out, it looks like, obviously from your bio and from what I've heard about you, you've developed a passion for training the trainers, so to speak. What led to that trajectory of your career?
Well, not necessarily training the trainers, right? We train salespeople, sales managers, sales leaders. So I don't know if it's more training, trainers.
Training the leaders.
Training the leaders of sales teams, yes. Because, you've got this, age-old adage of, hey, Tom, you're marginally good at sales. Want to run a sales team? Like, what? Quarterbacks don't come out in the second half and play middle linebacker. One does not lead to success in the other. And companies continue to make this mistake to this day. You have to understand how to lead people. You being good at sales does not qualify you to lead a team of salespeople. So that's a mistake I see constantly made. But it's not even the sales manager's fault, because they never got taught. So they just think, well, I know sales. I'll teach Chris how to do sales. And it is just not that simple.
Right. I'm assuming that it does happen occasionally. There's every once in a while, there's the horse that comes out and is a great fit for both, but it's definitely not the norm. No, it's the unicorn. In my career, had a ton of success in my Cutco days, my Aflac days, able to make it to number 1 in the country in both companies. But that didn't mean I was a good sales leader. I was a terrible sales leader when I started, because I couldn't understand why people couldn't do what I did, which is sort of the Ted Williams philosophy. And if y'all listening don't know, Ted Williams was the last guy in Major League Baseball to hit 400. You hit 300 today, you make $300 million. I don't even know what Ted Williams would have got paid, but he was the best hitter, one of in the history of baseball. And he was the worst manager in the history of the Red Sox, because he couldn't understand why the hitters couldn't see the spin on a slider. And he's like, you can't line that down the line? Like, no, Ted, I don't hit. Nobody can do that.
But that's what happens with sales leaders, right, who were good salespeople. They don't understand why someone can't just get it like that. So that's what we really like to do, is really help engage and teach and coach these sales leaders how to be more effective with their people.
That's awesome. It's reminding me of the number of times in my life that, and I've done sales at one point now as a marketing director. I come from an engineering background, and there are certain things that I do with Excel or how I think about solving problems. And I've a number of times, it's like, how stupid can I be? It's like, I now know that it's not a just given natural talent that everybody has, but I still assume in those conversations with people, it's like, yeah, you just, go in here and grab this formula and do this thing. And they're like, I don't know what you just said, Chris. And it's like that, but now we're talking about doing this across a whole sales team. And, it's like, why is this so difficult? It's like, well, that's a skill set that doesn't necessarily mean all marketers have, for example, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
You mentioned in something I was reading about you that you are like, I don't know, I might be putting words or spinning this my own direction, but stand-up comedy in your presentations, something that I'm an admirer of stand-up comedians, and I love using comedy strategically for the purpose of drawing in a crowd, teaching, educating, and keeping attention, obviously. I'm curious, are there any comics that you admire or draw inspiration from in particular?
Sure. And what's interesting, I learned this from a mentor of mine who's in the Speakers Hall of Fame, Mike Rayburn, and Mike taught me a ton, but as a speaker, we shouldn't necessarily be studying speakers. I like some speakers, I like, Simon and Bless and some other, famous speakers. But I get more rise out of the crowd, when I can keep them engaged, entertained, laughing, and so on. So my influences growing up, Seinfeld, Sam Kinison, obviously I can't be using too many F-bombs like Sam, but Greg Giraldo, Mitch Hedberg, these are some of the guys that I really focus on and I study. Their delivery, their timing, their movements, their actions, their body language, those types of things. And so I'm not near where I want to be as a speaker, but it's nice to hear the feedback. And, you'll see right in these Vistage talks when people are like, man, I would have paid to see you on Friday night. I'm like, thanks, man. So I try to make it fun and not just this boring, Buellering, sales trainer crap that, people have heard for way too long. Right.
The Seinfeld in particular, I remember seeing, it was a YouTube video that I saw, but it was a talk that he had given on like some, interview that he did. But he was talking about the power dynamics that are present with comedians, or not just comedians, but any speaker and the audience itself, and how you can leverage, like when you get the room to laugh at a joke, you therefore have power over that room. And then he also was talking about how in stand-up comedy, you have the heckler, and sometimes they can say something and totally just derail the entire act if the comedian is not skilled in handling that. But yes. It's kind of this like really interesting, he was just describing how this works, that you could have a heckler say something and the really good comedians, they take it, grab it, and then throw it right back at the person, and boom, everything's back into balance. He still has power, and the person that was trying to, make a jab at him or whatever is now like, oh, he knows his stuff. I'm not going to mess with him anymore,
You wouldn't think that would happen in the Vistage world, but that happened in Baltimore. I just told the story yesterday at this. I was speaking at the National Sales and Marketing Conference for Vistage they had yesterday, and I brought the story up about this heckler in Baltimore because every word I said, he would have a comment. Oh, you really believe that? Oh yeah. Oh, you really think that? I'm like, dude. You can disagree with me all you want. It's fine. I like disagreements, but let me get out at least the whole sentence before you get up my, and of course, I won't say the name of the sales training system, but he's just a robot, right? He's just one of these sales training system robots that just thinks you got to do the closing questions and we got to mirror people and what's the upfront contract? It's just total garbage. And he just doesn't have any semblance of being a human being in sales. He's just a robot that repeats lines. So he was trying to heckle me and throw me off, and it didn't work. So
yeah, that's awesome. So from obviously speaker perspective, comedy is a great tool to engage. How is there, or I don't know if this is something you would teach, but how do people leverage comedy or humor in the sales process, or is that addressed at all when you're talking about sales, or is that just like some people have it and they use it and that's great, and some people don't and that's fine also?
I think it's the latter. If you've ever been around somebody that's trying to be someone they're not, it doesn't work. I won't say the name of this famous speaker, motivational guy, whatever, but he pretends that he's Tony Robbins, right? He pretends that he's trying to dance around on stage and do stuff, and it's like, what are you doing? This is really awkward. Like, this is not you. So if that's not your personality, don't try to make jokes with people, because sometimes you try to make a joke that's tongue in cheek, and if you don't have the timing, delivery, and so on, it's going to be worse.
Backfire. Yeah.
Saying anything. So you just have to be yourself, and if that's you and you're jovial and fun to be around, then that's how you're supposed to be when you sell. You don't change who you are when you sell. You have to be who you are, and some people aren't going to like you, and too bad. I mean, it's just that's a huge thing what we teach in Sales DNA. And we didn't talk about it yet, but 86% of salespeople have something called the need to be liked. 86%. So if you're just constantly worried about being liked by your prospect, I mean, that is devastating for you and your results as a sales professional, because you're not going to say what needs to be said because you think he's not going to like you, because that's what you've been taught, right? People buy from people they like. Okay, that is total garbage. And if you want to test me on it, talk to the 100,000 realtors that still can't sell a house in this market.
But everyone likes them. Yeah.
Yeah. Their cousin sold a house, and they go, "Hey, Chris, why didn't you knew I was a realtor, right? We're cousins." And Chris is like, "I knew."
Yeah.
He's not using you because you're not valuable.
Right.
It has nothing to do with being likable. If you bring massive amounts of value to a prospect, they're more likely to buy, not because they want to go out to dinner with you. And
that's awesome.
That's what the top 10% of men and women understand, right? They would rather be respected than liked. The bottom 90% would rather be liked. And that's why they're the bottom 90.
Yeah. One of the things I've read that you've said is that sales quotas are antiquated and decrease sales results. That's a interesting jumping off point, but tell me more about that.
Yeah, I mean, about the only thing that quotas increase are depression, anxiety, fear, aggression, commission breath. They do not increase results. This was part of my talk yesterday when we talked about DPIs versus KPIs. DPIs are daily performance indicators. A KPI, or a quota, is a key performance indicator. And if you and I were going to lose 20 pounds, okay, you and me, we both want to lose 20 pounds. And I'm going to do the traditional method. I'm going to look at my vision board, and I'm going to dream about it. I'm going to do daily affirmations, and I'm going to focus on the number. I'm going to do 100,000 this month. And then you don't look at the scale one time, not once in a month. And all you do is 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 crunches, 100 curls, run for 2 miles, and eat 1,200 calories. That's all you look at every day, and all you do is accomplish those 5 things. You don't look at the scale once. Who's going to lose weight, me or you?
Me, yeah, all day.
How many times out of 100?
Yeah, every time.
So these quotas are stupid. They're meaningless. It drives nothing. It's the daily activity that drives the quota. It's the daily activity that drives the KPI, not the other way around. And that's what companies keep missing over and over again.
As far as are you an advocate? Like, I'm just thinking about how this works at Webfoot. We have, we're going to sell 10 million. So we've got 5 sales reps, that's 2 million a sales rep. Are you a fan of like approximately we know that these numbers are feasible and then that's as far as those go? And then after that, you just try and turn that into what would it take for someone to be disciplined in a daily routine to achieve that? Is that what you're saying?
So I'll answer this in a different way. I don't know if you're married, single, boyfriend, girlfriend.
Married. Yep.
Married, right? You come home and your spouse says, "Honey, I'm gonna cook dinner tonight." What's his or her name?
Natalie.
Natalie. So Natalie says, "Chris, I'm gonna make dinner tonight." You're excited. Cool. You get there and it's like friggin' liver or mutton or something, and you're like, "What is this?" And she goes, "Oh, well, that's what my sister likes." And you go, "What your sister likes? What does that have to do with me?" "Well, my sister likes it." Wouldn't you look at Natalie funny if she gave that answer?
It doesn't make any sense, yeah.
Okay, that's what salespeople feel when you give them a quota. You really think they give a shit about some $10 million goal? Mine's $2 million. It means nothing to them. What? Zero. Why would people be excited about something that means nothing to them? And that's just the surface. But that's why 60% of salespeople don't hit quota. I mean, and that's just one small reason. You have to motivate people by what they want, not by what you want, not by what the company wants or some stupid private equity guy wants or the controller. Or generally, quotas are set by people who've never set foot in the field. I mean, would you pay $100 for a steak dinner from somebody who's never set foot in a kitchen? You wouldn't want them making your steak.
Right.
So what qualifies them to make my goals? And that's just scratching the surface. That's why.
And so when you, I'm trying to put this into practical terms for again, from the business that I know. So I'm on the marketing side, but we have goals for the number of leads that we want to hit and weekly, what does this look like on a weekly basis?
Yeah.
On the sales side, are you saying that, I'm assuming because you're saying based on what the salesperson wants. So a sales manager comes in and gets to know every salesperson, figure out what motivates them.
Yes.
And what, like, if we run through this scenario, is it like, I want to make X or I want to spend time with my kids? Is that the type of stuff that we're trying to uncover?
The easiest example. So salespeople are driven in 3 ways, right? Extrinsically, intrinsically, and altruistically. Okay. Extrinsically is money, things, prizes, commissions, bonuses, that type of stuff. Okay. Intrinsically, pride, satisfaction, joy, enjoyment of their job, right? Those types of things. Recognition, plaques, things like that, pats on the back. Altruistically are for the good, greater good, right, of others. These are people that will give you the shirt off their back. These are people that just want to help customers. They don't care about money. They don't care about high fives. They just want to help people. If you don't know which one of those 3 and to what degree your salespeople have, you are blind as a sales leader. How would you know? If I try to motivate you with money, right? This is actually a real life case study. We have a kid, his wife sold for like 80 million, right? Sold her company. They don't have to work, okay? He likes selling because it's just something he loves to help people with, right? As a realtor. He doesn't care about the money. So his broker tries to motivate him with like a $500 bonus for each transaction. Like, dude, are you mental? What are you doing? It's like trying to motivate a vegetarian by telling them you have brisket sandwich waiting for them.
Right.
What are you doing? So the reason we use sales DNA tests is because when salespeople take the test, it measures which motivation style they have and to what degree. So as a sales leader, you want to know that Mike is 75% extrinsic, 25% altruistic. That Jennifer is 65% intrinsic, 0% money motivated. You better know that as a sales manager. If you don't, you're blind and you're just guessing. So
does that lead to different, like, basically you don't have set compensation plans for everyone. It's like, oh, John, you get this, Brooke, you get this, Sarah, you get this, and customize it?
Yes. So just like in your company and every other company, right, you get to pick employee benefits, right? You can pick, do you want an HMO, a PPO, an HSA? What dental plan do you want vision or not vision? You don't get told, Chris, you need to see Dr. Smith. What? Yeah, you're going to go see my doctor. I don't get to choose my own doctor. No. How do you think that would go over in an organization? So
right.
That's what happens when you don't allow your salespeople to choose their comp plan. Just like everything else they get to choose. Why would you choose it for them? That would be like you choosing their dentist. So you don't have to have 74 different comp plans, but you gotta have more than one. You have to have one that's extrinsically driven, right? Higher commissions, higher bonuses, whatever, right? Lower base. Then you've got to have another one that's higher base, lower on commissions, lower on bonuses, right? Better for the intrinsic person. And sometimes you can do it separately where you have people that are shooting for something that means something to them. I was just in San Diego for a talk a couple of weeks ago, and I ran into this kid, John, I used to train. He's a lender, mortgage broker. And he used to do, 8-10 million a year in loans. So, not like a lot, but he probably made right around 6 figures. So he just told me that in September, he had done 4 million alone, right? In September, which was half a year for him before. And I said, man, what happened? He goes, well, I had a goal I wanted to hit, and Jared's his boss. And he went to Jared and he said, hey, Jared, if I do 4 million, can I get something? And Jared goes, yeah, man, what do you want? And John's a single dad, 2 daughters. And he said, I want a new living room set. So if I hit my all-time record, will you get me a new living room set? Jared's like, absolutely. So the 30th of the month, he closed his last loan, and he did 4.02 million, right? So he made it by $2,000. So obviously Jared took him to the store, and John goes, awesome, I'm going to get this set. And Jared goes, you're not done yet. John goes, what do you mean? Goes, pick out whatever you want. He goes, what? He said, yep, anything you want. So Jared, the owner of the company, furnished John's entire house. Why? That's what real leaders do, for one. But 2, that's what drove John, right? Was the furniture, not the money, he's wanted his daughters to have a nice place to sit, watch TV. So you have to sometimes give different incentives to different people that will drive them to hit records you never thought they would hit. But John didn't do that for the comp plan or the money or the bone. He did it for his daughters. That's the
interesting.
Stuff.
Yeah, that's my next question was, what have you come across other, because I guess I'm trying to, again, I have no say in sales. I'm just trying to think of the times that marketing and sales has come together, and there's rubs on different metrics and how we track and do things and whatnot. But I'm trying to think of the objectives that a sales manager would have, as far as what you're saying sounds nice, and it's sounds like a great idea if we could do that, but it seems really hard and complicated and difficult to manage and make fair or whatever. And fair maybe is the wrong word, but just creating those systems. So what are when you said we need more than one comp plan that, and you gave the high base, low base. Yeah. 3 plans, let's say.
Yeah.
And then is some of it more time off and potentially.
Yeah, some of it's donated time, some of it's donated to charities. I mean, I've seen some really interesting ones where people matched, a bonus to the person's favorite charity, or they're at the PTA, or whatever. They're at the rescue center, for animals, all kinds of stuff like that. But you just have to be equal, right, in what you do for each of the employees. And different states have different rules, of course, but you have to have it be equal, where somebody gets a chance to do this, somebody gets a chance to do that. But they pick, right? So if somebody wants, they want a matching donation, right, to the, animal shelter, right? Let's say it's $5,000 or something. And somebody else, they want a trip, a second honeymoon, right, for them and their wife. So make that $5,000 and they can go wherever they like. Or maybe they want Seattle, Washington, or maybe they want, Cancun. It just has to be equal, right? So you don't have one person getting $72,000 and one person getting $1,300. You just find out what they want, and they'll go for what they want, right? You're concerned with your family, Natalie, your wife, your kids, not the companies. And people
makes sense.
Understand that.
As far as going back to what you said about the daily habits, that's something that, and I'm trying, this is just off the top of my head, and you may have heard of a quote similar to this, that basically, the reason that daily habits are so critical is because once you get in the habit of doing something, your emotions are no longer dictating what happens that day, because it's a habit. I do it regardless. If I feel like crap, or if I feel amazing, or if I'm having just an average day, I know I'm going to get up, go to the gym, come home, whatever my routine is. Yes. I'm assuming that's where you're focusing is, let's not measure anything other than what are you doing every day? What'd you do yesterday? What'd you do last week? That's where the focus is, instead of, oh, you didn't hit your quota for the month or whatever.
Yeah. Every time. If people, and that's the David Goggins mentality, right? And, look up Goggins if you don't know him, folks, when you're listening to this, but, you have to take the emotions out. And habits, by the way, take 66 days to form. Okay. Not 21. That's a myth. That's crap. Not 30. It's 66 days. So if you do something for 66 days, not only will it become a habit, it'll become part of your lifestyle. With salespeople, they don't do a lot of things for 6 days in a row, let alone 66. So when we teach salespeople our daily victory game plan, it's 18 things, right, that they should be doing every day. If they do those 18 things, and sometimes it's 16, sometimes it's 12, but we customize them because obviously every sales role is different, right? And they have different requirements. But if they do those things and they complete their daily victory game plan every day, 100% of the time their activity increased. Not 20%, not 72, 100%. And we know if their activity increases, pure math tells us that sales will increase. And we haven't even added in training, coaching, support, sales DNA. We haven't even changed anything that they're doing other than that habit. And that's how you get people to perform to their best. Now, when you add on top of it, skill building and training and body, all the other stuff we teach, that's how we get high performers.
And so I don't have to go through the top 18 list, but just what are, I guess, the full 18, but what are like top 5 daily habits that you're talking about?
So if we think about someone that's in outside sales, right, a couple things would be new dials, right, new calls, new door knocks, whatever you want to call it, right, that would be one. Strategic partner calls, that would be another. People that can introduce you to other people, right? So CPA to a financial advisor, for example, right? Financial advisor should be reaching out to CPAs to build those relationships. Asking for referrals. 91% of customers would give referrals when asked. 11% of salespeople ask. If you just asked one person a day for referrals, introductions, you would get them. Reading, so 20 pages a day, which is 15 minutes. That's a daily habit. People say, I don't have time. The average American watches 5 hours of TV streaming Netflix a day. 5 hours a day. So when you say you don't have time, you have plenty of time. It's just not that important for you to be great. It takes no time to be mediocre. But all the most successful men and women in the world read every day. So those are some, right? There's certain things we teach on LinkedIn, certain things that we teach that are daily musts, right? That you have to do every day, but those are just some of them.
And reading is, leaders are readers. I heard there's a bunch of different quotes like that. I'm a big believer in that. Do you recommend specific types of books, I assume, like sales books, or it's just like, if you just get in the habit of reading, that's more important than what you're reading, because eventually you'll come across the sales stuff and maybe go back to fiction or whatever.
Yeah, there's a million. I mean, it's over there, but, there's...
We'll get some book recommendations at the end.
There's tens of thousands of books. Probably millions of books, right, that are leadership-driven, growth-driven, personal growth, right, sales leadership, all of those things. And if you want to you can read fiction books too for fun, but I'm talking about growing your skill set and developing something that you don't know how to do into a strength. And people that know how to do it have written it all down, and they tell you how to do it, and all you got to do is do it.
Right.
You might know this, but the average salesperson reads one book a year. One.
Yeah, I was going to say the average American reads less than one, so maybe sales just a hair above, yeah. Yep,
and if you do that, 20 pages a day, which is, again, a daily habit, you'll have read 41 books by the end of the year. Most people have not read 41 books in their life. And as a business professional, do you think you'd be better off if you read 41 books? Obviously.
Yeah. Audiobooks, you count those?
Yeah, I like those too, right? You're driving and, you want it to sound good. I like podcasts. I like YouTube. I listen to a lot of that stuff too. There's so much stuff on YouTube. There are no more excuses. They're just, in the old days, if you're old like me, you had to go to the library. You pick your phone up, you've got a trillion things you can watch, listen, and learn from.
Yeah, agreed. One of the other strategies that I've heard from you is just revealing the cost of inaction.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that, or the importance of that.
Well, I sort of learned this from a podcast. I don't know if you call it a podcast, but Tom Bilyeu is a guy that runs a program called Impact Theory. And so I was listening to Bilyeu in the car, and he had on Ed Milet. And Milet was he's another famous business guy, talking about he went to the doctor, and he was 40 years old, and he's having heart trouble. So he goes to the doctor, and the doctor looks at his EKG and goes, I'd never seen an EKG in a 40-year-old man look like this. And he's like, is it bad, doc? And he goes, hey, Ed, I'm just curious. Do you have any kids? And Ed said, yeah, I got a 5-year-old daughter and a little boy on the way. And the doctor said to Ed, do you have any interest in walking your daughter down the aisle when she gets married? He goes, yeah, of course. So the doctor says, if you don't change what you're doing, there's going to be some other dude walking her down the aisle and going home with your wife. And to this day, Milet has not missed a workout. But what that doctor did was something called revealed the true cost of inaction. Meaning, if you don't change, right, inaction, you lose this. See, in sales, we do the opposite, which is why it doesn't work. When you feature and benefit everybody to death, and you go, you should buy this because, you should go with us because, you should use us because. No. You can't tell them what they gain if they go with you. You have to tell them what they lose if they don't. That is how we need to sell. That is how you get people to change. But nobody does that. They just want to feature and benefit everybody to death.
And is this, I totally agree with that. Is that from obviously salesperson to customer?
Yeah.
But is there also, this plays a role, I assume, in leading salespeople too, right?
Manager to salespeople, right?
And like implementing the daily habits. Say it's like for Ed Mile, it's working out, but maybe it's
daily habits, CRM usage, right? Most salespeople don't use CRM. Why don't they use a CRM? Because they're told they have to use the CRM. You can't do it that way. You have to show them what they lose by not using it. And when you show salespeople they're losing $67,000 because they don't want to enter in the info, okay, that kind of gets their attention. But when you tell them what to do, people's reaction when they get told what to do is to do the opposite.
right.
So anybody that's listening, if you have teenage daughters, right, and you tell them, I don't want you going near that guy, Mike, they're going to run over to Mike. Like, this human psychology. So, when you keep telling people why they should buy, you should do this, you should do that, we're the best company, they're going to do the opposite.
Have you heard of fear setting?
Did you say FEAR?
Yeah, fear setting. It's a Tim Ferriss. Tim Ferriss did a TED Talk on it. But anyways, it seems like it's kind of in line with what you're talking about. It's basically a lot of us get paralyzed because we're afraid of stuff, but we've never taken the time to articulate it and write down. So it's basically this TED Talk. I can put it in the show notes for anyone that's interested in this, but it's essentially is like you write down everything you're afraid of. Then you write down the worst case scenario. So it's like, let's say this actually happens. Let's actually go into, okay, what does that look like?
So I did that. So it's Ferris' fault, by the way, that I moved to Costa Rica. So
there you go.
I did that. I just didn't know what it was called. So we called it like a Ben Franklin, right? What's the best thing that happens? What's the worst thing that happens? And I wrote it all out. And when I had my legal pad, there were like 57 things of why it was good to just go to Costa Rica and never come back and run my business from there. And then on the right side, it was like 5 things. I'm like, that's not that bad. Okay. I lose some clients. All right, I'll get more. So that's why I moved.
Are you in Costa Rica now? That's where you live?
No, I was there all of 2019.
Okay, just for a year.
I started to build my business, wrote my book, all that kind of stuff, and then it got crazy busy and travel was nuts, and I just had to be in the States because I can't.
You got to be close to a big airport now, right?
Yeah. So, but I still have my place. I was just we had 2 bookings today, so now Airbnb it. So
that's awesome. The fear setting is the way that Tim Ferriss breaks it down is fantastic. It's like again, 15-minute TED Talk, but it really just goes into, you have to go through those steps. And once you put it on paper, it's just like it's so abstract and hard to quantify when you're just letting it run around in your head. And then you look at it, like you said, and you're like, oh my gosh, like this is a no-brainer. Like a monkey would do the same. Like it's just that obvious,
I forget who said the quote, and I don't know the exact quote, but it's like, we spend so much time worrying about things that have never happened. I don't know who said that, but it's true. It's like we think the worst of everything, and it's probably not going to happen anyway.
99% of it never comes to fruition. Yeah.
It's not that bad, even if it does happen. So,
totally. One thing, talking about like prospecting activities, this is actually a specific issue at Webfoot. So we have, just trying to give you a little context before you answer this. We're like a home services business. So we do interior, exterior painting, build decks, refinish decks, coat garage floors, a bunch of different services. In the summertime, we are so busy. Our estimators get booked out for 4 to 5 weeks before we can even look at a project to give you a price. And then it flips in the wintertime. we could look tomorrow and every estimator's open. So there's this constant flux of so busy in the summertime that we couldn't like have enough estimators. And even if we, at that point, like we just end up selling out our crews because there's so much work, you know, but then it flips to the wintertime and we never have enough, there's not enough leads. So marketing's job is primarily to fulfill as many of those open slots as we can for the estimators. But one of the discussions is in the wintertime, we just start prospecting, right? So the estimators they start calling people and whatever, but prospecting takes time and there's relationships and follow up to do that. And so the challenge or the debate is basically, should we just have our estimators do prospecting type activities year round, regardless, even though in the summertime, they're so swamped with work that they just can't, you know what I mean?
Yes. Like, I don't know why this came into my head, but if you think about, like, there's a show, what is it called? Life Below Zero, right? It's about these people that live in friggin' Alaska, right? In the middle of nowhere. And they set traps, right? They have to set traps, you know, because they have to survive. They don't go and set the trap and then expect, you know, the rabbit to be caught in it 4 minutes later. You set the traps like for weeks. Then you go back and big surprise, there's rabbits there. So you have to be preparing the whole time, right? It's like a farmer. You don't put the seed in the ground and then there's the corn. Mm-hmm. You have to start early. Then you water it. Then you water it more. Then it sprouts. Then you finally get crops. But if you're not doing any of it, you're not watering, right, your existing clients, what do you think's going to happen? Because if you start prospecting in September and you're hoping to get something out of it in January, you just wasted 3 months.
How long would you say it takes is there an average for, like, if you begin prospecting activities today, it's going to take X number of months before you see real results?
No, because it's totally different based on the industry, right? If somebody's sales cycle was, medical device, right, that was a 24-month sales cycle.
So you take years, 2
years. So, you know, in your business, though, in the home services business, and I've had 2 nightmares in the last 2 weeks since I moved to Dallas, one with a painter, one with a contractor. It's a horrendous experience for many, many consumers. And they know because they've been screwed over many a time. That is what you guys are up against. So if in any way, shape, or form, your estimator, your appointment setter, if any of them sound, behave, act, write, type, text like a salesperson, like one of those people, you lose. And you're losing a ton of jobs. And they don't even know who you are.
Yeah,
and that's a big part.
Because honestly, the thing that's really the problem, like in the summertime, we blow past revenue goals every single time. It's just like if we could hire more people, we'd sell even more. But we just get booked out for the whole year by, end of June. It just is that prospecting thing that's like, how do you convince a sales department to like say no to the food that's right in front of them because there's work. And that's the thing is I sort of feel like from a sales perspective, they're going to get commission regardless if they sell an exterior now or later or whatever. But the crews are the ones that get hurt if we don't have work in the winter. You know what I mean? So it's trying to tie or connect those dots. That's like, you need to say no to this feast right now and prepare for later because later we need it,
That's what happens, right? You have to ration. If you don't ration, you die.
Right.
But that's not how humans work. And that's why it's a lot of work with sales teams, right? Especially the leaders, to get them to understand what they're doing is retarding the growth of their business. But they don't even get it. So it takes time to work with them. You know, we don't do a lot of like, you know, one day things, you know, people want to hire me to do their national sales meeting or, you know, that kind of stuff. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. That does nothing. It takes time. You've got years of bad behaviors that we cannot undo in 2 hours. It takes time, just like anything. But that's what has to be undone. And if it's not undone, you're going to have the same problem every single year and probably leave millions of dollars on the table. It all adds up. This is not just 1 year, right? This is every year.
Yep.
But people go, oh, well, we made $6 million last year. Yeah, well, you lost 4.
Yeah. Hiring salespeople. Can you train, or I'm thinking of it more from like the basketball analogy. Like, is a legend born or made? Do you have to go find the talent and hire them, or can you train them?
So if we take the first, is it born or trained, right? Let's think of, Michael Jordan, right? Was Michael Jordan born to be the best basketball player of all time? Hell no. He didn't even make his high school basketball team. I mean, Serena Williams, there's that thing with Will Smith, that new King Richard thing, right? About Serena and Venus. Were they just born to be tennis stars? Hell no. They've had a coach since they've been 2. So you can absolutely train those things. But what you cannot train, and this is why what we do to help companies find salespeople is so unique, and using the sales DNA test. So we measure something called the will to sell. Okay, the will to sell. It's made up of 5 or 6 different competencies we measure. But one of them is commitment. And commitment not in the sense of, am I committed to going to work every day? Commitment in the sense of, will I do the things I hate to do as a salesperson in order to be great? Will I pick the phone up? Will I enter in CRM? Will I show up to meetings? Will I do my reports, right? All of those things. We can tell if a candidate has it or doesn't have it before you even speak to them. So we know if a candidate has desire, if they're coachable, if they make excuses. We know and can see it all before you hire them. That is stuff that doesn't change. The sales skills that we measure, most people have never been trained professionally in sales. And if they have, it's been horribly, poorly trained with all this old school BS, always be closing garbage. That's the crap they got taught. So that can be trained. But you can't train somebody to have desire and coachability and motivation. So those folks, they're out. We don't even interview them. We want the people that have that, and then we can train up the skills. So it's a different way of looking at it, but that's why we have such a high success rate.
So when hiring someone, it sounds like you have a tool to use to obviously filter out based on their habits or their just makeup, right? DNA. Yeah. Is there also like strategies or questions, or I'm just thinking like everyone has their favorite interview question or task?
Most of them are god awful. And I don't know where they got them, but they probably Googled interview questions. And again, some moron who has no idea what they're doing is the one that wrote it. So there's an organization called SHRM, right? Society for Human Resource Management. And it's, tens of thousands of HR directors, right, that are part of this society. They did their own study, and 84% of them, 84%, do you know what their weakest skill was?
Of salespeople or people hiring? People
hiring.
Their weakest skill was qualifying or evaluating candidates? I don't know.
Yeah, interviewing.
And that's their job? That's what they're supposed to be doing?
And they can't do it.
Yeah.
So what chance does some VP of sales or CEO, what chance do they have? They have no clue what they're doing. So when we teach companies how to hire the right salespeople, we have a 4-hour training. It's 4 different hour-long trainings that we walk through everybody that touches the hiring process. What to look for in a resume, how to do a 10-minute phone screening, what questions to ask, what questions not to ask, how to avoid interview bias because everybody has them. If you don't even know what interview biases you have, you're going to hire the wrong people. And people do it all the time. Oh, she went to Penn State, I went to Penn State. Hey, want the job? What?
Yeah.
That's what they do. And that doesn't even include the DNA test, right? That the person, right, that's doing the hiring, they build it. So if you were looking for a snow cone salesman, you would actually build the DNA test and you would create this ideal avatar of the snow cone salesman you want based on what we're going to measure. And we measure the candidates to that. And we know this is a recommended guy. You need to talk to him. This gal, she's going to be great. You need to talk to her. This guy, absolutely not. You do not waste 1 second looking at a resume, doing an interview. You don't waste any time. And
so what are the, is there like key, I don't know if this is the right question, but like, what's a characteristic that you are like, that is by far, if you were in charge, like you're looking for X, Y, Z, those are for most sales roles, that's what you want.
Yeah, well, the overriding one is the one we talked about earlier, which is the will to sell. So what we've done, again, is 32 years of data we have, 2.1 million salespeople. We know for a fact with 100% certainty, if they do not have a will to sell above a certain percentage, they have 0 chance to be a top performer. 0. So anybody that doesn't meet the threshold for will to sell, they're an automatic no. Then when we look at sales DNA, what's in people's minds, the need to be liked, being comfortable discussing money, having conversations appropriately with prospects, there's 5 or 6 of them we measure. There's that threshold. And then we have the threshold of the selling skills. So hunting, closing, right, consultative selling, presentation skills, virtual proficiency, we measure all those. So if you needed to hire an outside sales rep, I mean, you want a hunter. Well, we would want to look at the hunting score. And if she scores a 93 as a strength in hunting, that's a good thing. But if you're looking for somebody that's a relationship builder, maybe an account manager or inside sales, and she gets a 23 on hunting, a low score, who cares? It doesn't even matter because that's not part of her role. So it's not just this blanket, they scored this.
It depends.
Exact role. Yep. And that's what makes it different from every other assessment on the planet, which 99% are assumptive, right? They are not predictive. They're assumptive. And you already know what happens when you assume things. And it just doesn't work. It just does not work.
Have you ever heard of the topic assignment selling?
No.
I'll give you the definition of this is the process of intentionally using educational content that you've created about your products or services to resolve major concerns and answer the burning questions of prospects so they're much more prepared for a sales appointment. Basically, the guy I think it's the guy who created this term, his name's Marcus Sheridan, and he wrote a book called They Ask You Answer. It's a marketing book, but it's also a sales book in the sense that it tries to connect sales and marketing together to leverage the knowledge that the salespeople have and turn it into content that can be sent to customers prior to us actually engaging in a call.
Yes. I know what you're talking about. Yes, good idea. We do that indirectly. So we talk about this when we're going to meet with a potential client. generally a salesperson does not even contact this person until the Zoom. I mean, they show up 12 seconds before the Zoom. But if you do that, you are generally spending, and salespeople, we all know this term, right, is discovery, right? You're spending 15 minutes, trying to figure stuff out, or you blab a bunch of BS about why you're the best thing since sliced bread and all this other crap. You can do all of that before you ever meet with people.
Yeah.
So we have built, almost like what this gentleman was saying, we have videos, we have logins, we have testimonial, we have all the stuff, right, that we send before we ever speak to a prospect. Then when we talk to them, they already know what we do.
Yes. And now they're prepared with questions to have a much more meaningful conversation.
Yes, I can spend all that time finding out about their challenges, their pain, right? What drives them? Why they've had this problem for so long? How long do they want to have this, right? So what is it costing them not to fix it? Right? Remember, true cost of inaction. So that's what I want to spend all my time with, not telling
you guys,
how great we are.
Yeah, you're saying as Victory Selling, you guys use this for acquiring your clients, but you don't have and I'm assuming it's probably because this is more marketing, you don't have a process to implement in a business, but you're a fan and you've said that this works.
Correct. Because it's different, right?
Exactly.
Process might be, sending, I'm not you personally, but your process might be sending a product to someone, try my drink, right? This is going to a distributor because I want this distributor to carry La Croix, right? So I'll send him or her samples. That might be my process, but it wouldn't be your process and what you do. So find out what is it, right, that is unique about you, right? People call it USP, right? Unique selling proposition, whatever, right? But what makes you different, and why would I want to be excited about talking to you instead of, it's another sales appointment? No, I want our prospects looking forward to talking to us. Like, wow, they got a lot of testimonials, or wow, that sales DNA test, that's pretty cool. Or wow, they helped that company fill 5 positions in 3 weeks. I want them seeing that from other people, not from us.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I have the question specifically about, this is an idea that's been discussed at Webfoot. I'm curious your take on this. So we are considering creating an outbound sales team. So apparently there's another company in the paint world that is a commercial. They're like 90% commercial, and they live on commercial prospecting. So they have a team of 5 people that basically make cold calls to some directories, and they drum up, however much business. And so we are the opposite. We're like 85% residential and a small percent commercial, but we believe there might be more commercial opportunity if we could create a new sales role for this, like with this purpose in mind. The problem is, like, it's a new thing. We don't have a compensation plan for it. It's completely different. Like a sales rep for us today, they run 16 appointments a week, and every single one of those is handed to them. It's like, show up at this house. The person needs a quote for this, and then sell them. The other job would be call 100 people, and 2 of them are going to respond to you, and 1 of them will say, I'll talk to you in a month or whatever.
Correct.
Is like, I don't know. It's just like so different than what we've done. It seems like a stupid idea on one hand. I'm sure that it's possible, but there has to be a better solution to find commercial work than just like giving someone a phone book and saying, start calling.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of that. Not that it, wouldn't work, but how much money and time are you going to invest, right? Hiring these people, training them, coaching them, right? Providing them the numbers to call, all of that stuff. How effective are they going to be? And what's the ROI on that? You're a marketing guy. Are you going to get 3 to 1 on that?
Yeah, I don't know.
But it's a big risk. Again, it's not a big risk if they're just a 1099 person and it just going to dial all day, okay, whatever, right? But if you're paying somebody, it's costing us 50 grand, 60 grand, 70 grand, whatever, right? Plus the leads, plus the time, plus the training, plus all that. You're in for 100 grand. Are they going to get us, 300 grand in profits? I don't know.
Yeah. What would be your, just off the top, is that would you try to solve that problem by adjusting our current salespeople, like their habits, or do you think that having segregated roles makes sense?
Well, I'm always a believer that having a trained team is better. But most sales teams are not trained. We see it every day. So if you can improve the skill set, the mindset, the habits of the people you have, they'd probably double sales. But you wouldn't have to pay that much to do it because, what we do costs generally less than your worst salesperson. I mean, what we do generally costs less than what people pay an administrative assistant. So that's where we see the upside.
And that actually makes me think, so we've hired, I'm just assuming that this is something that you run into. If we hired you to help us hire our new sales team in a new market, for example, we're going into Salt Lake next year and we need, I think we have already hired the salespeople, but say the next market that we go into, we need salespeople. You would run through that DNA test and whatever, but there's also, we've got our existing sales team. Yeah. And I'm not saying this necessarily for us, but do you go in and basically say, everyone take this test? And then it's like, ooh, Johnny and Sarah, you have no will to sell and you're fired. Is that how that goes? Or is it actually turn into like you need to understand that you're going to really struggle because you don't want to sell?
That's the issue, right? Is if you don't know what you have, right?
Yeah.
How are we ever going to improve? So we do the sales team evaluation. Generally, that's the first step, right? That's the MRI of the sales organization. So salespeople, sales manager, sales leader, right? There are 3 different versions of the DNA test. How do we know? Is it the salespeople? Is it the sales manager? Who is it? Is it the VP? I had a talk, this is maybe a month ago, and they do maybe 30 million. And the guy goes, Steve, I want you to fix the sales team. So we had some conversations, start talking, whatever. And I'm like, Chris, do you have a mirror in your office?
Do I? I do not.
Not you, but that was his name, right?
Yeah.
And he just stood there. And I'm like, yeah, dude, it's you. So if the CEO doesn't recognize he or she has room to grow, if the VP of sales doesn't recognize he or she has room to grow, we can't help.
Yeah.
See, they all think it's the salespeople.
Right.
And when you talk to the salespeople, like we do all the time, and we ask them what the challenges are, it's night and day what the sales manager thinks and what the salespeople think. If you ask the sales manager, hey, do you recognize your people? What do you think they all say?
Oh, yeah, of course. All the time. Yeah.
All the time. You ask the sales team, do you
Not
get recognized?
Yeah. Never. Yeah.
So if we don't do that sales team evaluation, we have no idea what's wrong. And that's why all these, antiquated, famous, what sales system, none of that works. That's like a doctor that has a patient come in and they just go, here, Chris, take these 2 aspirin. And you're like, well, my foot's hanging off. Oh, right. No, that's good. We give the same 2 pills to everybody.
Right.
But aren't you going to ask me questions or find out what happened? No, this is our system.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. It's never worked. So you have to find out what's wrong first. And so when we do those sales team evaluations, generally there's a significant portion of the sales team that is not highly skilled, right? Or not very successful. About 6% of salespeople are elite. Okay. Then you have the next 11%, then you have everybody else. But if we find somebody that isn't very strong or doesn't have the greatest will to, or whatever, we give them a chance to improve. We don't ever say, oh, get rid of Mike. It's let's help Mike. There's a reason that he's like this. Let's give him the tools, the training, the support, the guidance, the leadership. Then in 3 months, if he doesn't change and doesn't turn it around, and then you can decide what to do. But we never give recommendations on that. We want to help everybody get better.
You'd give recommendations in advance of hiring someone, but he's already on your team. He already knows your business. Now it's maybe the cost benefit of investing in that person is different than investing in someone that knows nothing about you. Yeah,
correct. Yeah, we'll know in 2 weeks, right? Because we can see who's going through our training. We can see who's logged into the lessons. We can see if they passed the quizzes. We can see how much time they've been studying. We can see it all. So we make it abundantly clear, if you don't do this, you don't work here. This is not optional.
Yeah.
Just they're your employees, right? So we can tell if somebody's not adopting what they need to do to get better, that ain't going to change. So why would you keep paying them?
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
That happens, man, all the time.
So a couple of questions as we wrap up here. I have to say, what is like your motivation? What's your deeper purpose? Where's your drive coming from? You have a lot of energy and like, it's exciting talking to you. Where is that? What's the fire that's burning in you? Where's that from?
Bad sales training. Somebody asked this yesterday. They go, Steve, what is your talk all about? When you come and speak to all our CEOs, what is your talk about? And I say, it's undoing 99% of what people have been taught about sales. Like, I see so many charlatans out there in our industry that should be in prison, and some have been, not on stages, because they teach this crap from the 70s that doesn't work. It didn't work then, and it doesn't work now. And so our goal is to completely change the way that people perceive salespeople. You can be honest, you can be friendly, you can have integrity, you can be humble, and you can be super successful. That's what drives us, right? Is changing the whole industry. And I don't even care if people hire us, but what I don't want them to do is hire these felons, right? Who have literally spent time in federal prison for theft and robbery and wire fraud. And they're famous because they were in a movie about Wall Street.
Right.
You're a criminal. You're not a sales trainer.
Right.
And that's the stuff that drives us every day, right? Is to undo all the crap that they've done and all the experiences people have had with salespeople. We're hated. It's like salespeople, lawyers. Like, it's not their fault either, because they've had so many bad experiences. Because all these people were taught, you're going to always be closing. And what are you talking about? I mean, that garbage has cost salespeople collectively probably $1 trillion, right? No one likes that. So we have to be the ones that are the guiding light. We have to be the ones that are the contrarians that tell people, you don't have to sell everyone that comes within 3 square feet of you. And that's what drives us every day.
That's awesome. What are you most proud of in your career so far?
Probably the testimonials, the stories, the people's lives we've helped, to improve upon. I met this guy, Bryce, yesterday, and I'm like, hey, man, you're my favorite testimonial. Not you, but the name. And he spells it the same, too. But like a guy like Bryce, who was a commercial flooring sales guy, he heard me on a podcast, and his boss wanted nothing to do with investing in him and helping him and training him. So he paid for his own sales DNA test, right, out of his pocket. And he was shocked because he had never, ever known why he wasn't succeeding the way he could. This is March of 2020. April, he set his all-time record. A year later, he's the VP of sales. And he just drove up from Chicago to meet me in Milwaukee when I was speaking up there. So guys like him, that's why we do what we do. That's what drives me the most.
That's awesome. All right, book recommendations. I always ask everybody. You can give me a couple, or if you have one all-time favorite. What are some book recommendations?
Yeah, so Think and Grow Rich, always. That's a great one. Still, a lot of people haven't read. Published in 1937 or so, and it's still relevant today. I do like Simon Sinek's Start With Why. I like that. I like The Catalyst, which is another really influential book. Atomic Habits, James Clear. That's kind of right along the lines of what we teach with DPIs and daily performance. So those are all great ones. And there's so many more I probably can't even remember, but those are a couple that would be great. And if you get my book, I'll make like 7 cents. And Amazon takes the rest. So
nice. Good. It's a good system that they've got going there.
Hey, that's why they're worth $1 gazillion.
Yeah. Have you read High Performance Habits?
Yes.
By Brendon Burchard?
Yep.
Yeah, I haven't read Atomic Habits. I have that one on my list, but
it's awesome. It's similar. I've seen Brendan, and again, with he's actually the guy I was talking about before. Like, just be Brendan. You're not Tony Robbins. Just be Brendan. Like, what are you doing, man? Like, he has great content, good book, like good stuff. Just be you. And it's weird, but that bothers me when somebody tries to be someone else. Like, look, some people like you, some people won't. If they do, great. If they don't, pound sand. Whatever.
Right.
You're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. But being disingenuous or trying to be someone else or some clone or something, just do you. Just be yourself.
Yeah. What's your favorite movie?
That's a tough one. Rocky IV. That's up there. Princess Bride. Wedding Crashers. Casino. Those are 4 good ones. But my favorite sales movie, which everybody that's in sales should watch, is The Pursuit of Happiness. Not that other bullshit. The Pursuit of Happiness. That is a real sales movie. That is about somebody with guts and perseverance and sacrifice and stick-to-itiveness and effort and family. That's what it's about. But nobody knows Chris Gardner. They all know the idiot from Wall Street.
Right.
It's all that garbage.
Flashy. Yeah. The that's making me think of just based on the book, what you just said, Pursuit of Happiness, and can't remember. So if people want to get in touch with you, how do you recommend that they do that? What's your preference?
LinkedIn's easy. Steve Heroux, right? Heroux. I'm on there a lot. VictorySelling.com. That's our website. You can see all the stuff we do on there. Instagram, the Steve Heroux, because somebody else had Steve Heroux, so I had to put the THE in front of it. So those are all ways I love to communicate with everybody. And I'm here to help and reach out, say hello, shoot me a DM. We just want to help people learn how to sell the right way. And that's our whole goal in life.
Awesome. Well, Steve, it's been great. Thank you so much for your generosity with your time and coming on, and look forward to meeting you next year when you come down to Bend, Oregon.
Yes, sir. Thanks, man. See you guys in January. Thanks, everybody, for listening.